Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. I came across this video talking about why ANC is corrupt. I think it is an interesting video which every Zimbabwean should pay attention to.
That the ANC's corruption is just about a few bad apples, that there are some selfish individuals who have hijacked a noble party, but if we tell the truth, the rot runs far deeper than that. The real problem started long before 1994. It started in exile, when the ANC became a liberation movement that operated like a secret society. Nobody asked questions about where money came from or where it went. There were no formal audits, there were no systems. Funds came from international donors, friendly governments, underground arms deals, and nobody accounted for it openly. It became normal to live in a world where secrecy kept you safe, where loyalty was more important than truth. Then apartheid ended, and South Africa handed them the keys to government. Suddenly, the ANC had to run a country, not just hide in safe houses and cross borders with suitcases of cash. But how do you run a country when you have spent decades operating without formal structures? You do what you know. You rely on loyalty. You place your comrades in positions of power not because they are the best, but because you trust them to protect you and the party. That is cadre deployment. People think it's a policy mistake. No, it was survival instinct carried into government. It was the only way the ANC knew how to function. The problem is, government is not exile. Government is not a revolutionary cell. Government runs on skills, competence, accountability, and public trust. But the ANC kept operating like a liberation movement. They built networks of loyalty within departments, municipalities, and SOEs. And because loyalty was more important than merit, corruption became a natural consequence. If your job depends on loyalty, then your main responsibility is to protect your superior, not to serve the public. So when your superior steals, you shut up. When you steal, your superior protects you. That is patronage.
I'll stop it there. I think I'll say two things from the outset. Number one, ANC is not the only party that started as a liberation movement. So we cannot excuse that they were used to operating without any system, without any structures, and use that as an excuse. It's not an excuse. This has become a serious problem, not only in South Africa, more so in Zimbabwe. In Zimbabwe, whatever you can say about ANC, you have to say it louder with capital letters about Zanu PF. So the transition, so the first thing here is to underline the fact that the transition from a liberation movement to a competent government is nothing new. Others have done it. So there's no excuse for failure. The second thing I would like to say here is whatever we can say about the ANC, like I said, we'll have to say it louder with capital letters about Zanu PF. I would say ANC had two redeeming features. ANC was a liberation movement that even before the end of apartheid, had committed itself and produced what the party called the Freedom Charter. These are the values that say all South African citizens must enjoy freedom, liberty, justice, etc., etc. And the party has committed itself to that. You do not find that in other parties, liberation movements. Zanu PF paid lip service to those values. One man, one vote. And yet, as the country drifted towards independence, the party was already thinking of how can we make sure that we win the elections? And we are not going to leave it to chance. Forget about one man, one vote. We want to win those elections. So you find in the case of Zanu PF, well, the Lancaster House Agreement said all the parties had to withdraw, those who had freedom fighters had to withdraw their freedom fighters from the field during the campaign period. Zanu PF did not withdraw all his freedom fighters to assembly points. Many of them were left in the field, and their instructions was to tell the civilian population that if Zanu PF does not win the election, the bush war would continue. Of course, the people voted to end the bush war. So forget about one man, one vote. And indeed, it is no exaggeration to say that the people of Zimbabwe lost their right to a meaningful say there and then, and they have never recovered it. One can say what you like about the ANC. The truth of the matter is, and this I think is one of Nelson Mandela's legacy to South Africa. He did leave a country with, yes, they are not perfect, but at least functioning democratic institutions. The producer of that video there was talking of some of the institutions took their time to be effective. That's true. But at least they were there. And I think some of them are becoming effective now. And that has been the saving grace for South Africa. South Africa has held free, fair, and credible elections since the end of apartheid. You cannot say the same thing about Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe is yet to hold its first free, fair, and credible elections. Mugabe and company imposed themselves and demanded that they should be the only ones who rules the country. They saw it as their divine right, as the party of liberation. And thus denying the people, the ordinary people, their right to a meaningful say in the governance of the country. Needless to say, corruption has become rampant in Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe is a failed state. And as long as it remains a pariah state, there's no chance of the country ever recovering. The country did have the opportunity to implement the democratic reforms and end the Zanu PF dictatorship. We wasted it. Mugabe bribed Morgan Tsvangirai and his colleagues during the GNU when they had the golden opportunity to implement the reforms. They failed to implement even one reform. And ever since the GNU, the MDC CCC leaders have been participating in elections which they know are flawed, knowing fully well that by participating, they are giving Zanu PF legitimacy. But they've soldiered on because they also knew that Zanu PF was giving away a few gravy train seats, and that they found irresistible. The tragedy for Zimbabwe is the people themselves have been slow in realizing what is going on here. And that hasn't helped the country at all. Whether we like it or not, whether we care to admit it or not, the point still remains that MDC, CCC were elected by the people to implement the democratic reforms designed to dismantle the one-party state, the de facto one-party state. But after 25 years on the political stage, they failed to implement even one token reform. And worse still, they've been participating in flawed elections to give Zanu PF legitimacy and perpetuate the dictatorship. That is the tragedy of Zimbabwe. Our failure to realize what is going on has been one of our faults. I emphasize it again that being a liberation movement did not necessarily mean the party involved had to become corrupt and incompetent. It's just a lack of vision. And for ANC, I believe they have got a way out. In Zimbabwe, at the present moment, we have no way out. The status quo at the present moment is Zanu PF will rig the elections. The opposition will connive with them, con their supporters to participate in the flawed elections, knowing fully well that that will give Zanu PF legitimacy for the sake of a few gravy train seats. Until the people realizes what is going on, I think Zimbabwe is stuck. Think about it. Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon. Sorry, before I close, I'll just put one remark there from somebody. And it says that, yes, ANC is rotten, my brother. That is very true. But I think, like I said, there is a saving grace. There are redeeming features in ANC. And I think they're beginning to work. Last year's elections saw ANC's iron grip on power loosened. That have forced them to accept change. You couldn't say the same thing about Zimbabwe. ANC has held free, fair, and credible elections consistently since 1994. And I think that tradition is going to continue. because the democratic institutions are getting stronger and stronger. And the opposition are getting more articulate and more focused and will hold the government of the day to account. In Zimbabwe, we have got the exact opposite. Zimbabwe's opposition has been so seriously compromised by Zanu PF to the point where it is no exaggeration to say Zimbabwe's opposition is Zanu PF Team B in all but name. Playing for Team A to win and playing for Team A to have legitimacy, while conning the people to believe that they care about the people, that the opposition is fighting in the people's corner, when in reality it has long stopped fighting in the people's corner. Think about it. Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon.